John, let's go in depth now. This weekend's revelation about the government publicly trading 5 Taliban prisoners in exchange for one of our soldiers in Afghanistan created a buzz on Saturday, but of course on Friday we had the resignation of VA Secretary Eric Shinseki. The buzz from the Beltway well beyond, and here to discuss both stories, Louis Celli, the legislative director for the American Legion. Louis, we are so happy to have you with us today here on America's Forum.
JD, thank you so much for having me, and we're looking forward to discussing these issues with you.
Well, we will get to the soldier-prisoner exchange in just a minute, but first up, the VA scandal. The American Legion, the first veteran service organization to call for Secretary Shinseki's ouster. Back on May 5th, your national commander had some very strong words. Let's listen directly to the statement from the national commander of the American Legion.
It is obvious the issues are more widespread within the VA. Those problems need addressed at the highest level, starting with new leadership. The existing leadership has exhibited a pattern of bureaucratic incompetence and failed leadership that has been amplified in recent weeks. Patient deaths are tragic, and preventable patient deaths are unacceptable. But the failure to disclose safety information, or worse, to cover up mistakes, is unforgivable, as is fostering a culture of non-disclosure.
Now, besides calling for Secretary Shinseki and other top VA officials to resign, Commander Daniel Dellinger said this is the first time the Legion had called for such resignations in more than 30 years. He went on to say it's obvious that issues are more widespread within the VA, faulting bureaucratic incompetence and failed leadership. I imagine this was a tough call, Louis, but for Commander Dellinger to say these things and finally see the results transpire on Friday, I don't know if you chalk it up as a victory as much as it is a triumph of public policy over politics. Give us the official take in the wake of the Shinseki resignation now from the American Legion.
Well, thank you, JD, and that's really an excellent point to bring up. The American Legion takes no joy in having Secretary Shinseki step down in disgrace. We absolutely are not reveling in this, but what we did need was we needed to see a substantive change in leadership, and Secretary Shinseki himself came out and admitted that he didn't have a full handle on what was going on and attributed that to his subordinates not giving him the truthful information that he needed in order to make the leadership decisions necessary to save patient lives and to make sure that veterans were well taken care of. That's not the type of leader that we have faith in. We have faith in a leader that's able to sniff out those lies, be able to root through that deception. This deception was a conspiracy. It was vision by vision by vision by vision wide. It spread across the entire agency. So this is something we expected him to be able to root out. And not only that, the American Legion and lawmakers on several different occasions said specifically in private and in public to then Secretary Shinseki, your people are not being honest with you. You need to get to the bottom of it. And unfortunately, this is where we are today.
So it is both systemic, but in the case of Secretary Shinseki, he failed to heed the advice that the Legion and lawmakers had given him, correct?
That is exactly correct. And not only did we give him that advice again in public and in private, we've also testified to the long waits and to the problems that were ensuing. We were even caught off guard by the full magnitude of deception until we were able to see that advanced IG report last week. It wasn't until then that we even said, oh my goodness, it's much more pervasive than we had originally thought.
Now, looking ahead, as the situation unfolds, the Undersecretary, Sloan Gibson, with, I would imagine, temporary or interim authority there within the VA, but press accounts list among the possible successors to General Shinseki, one General Stanley McChrystal. You take a look at this. Does the Legion have a suggestion to the administration for the next VA secretary?
Well, I can tell you that specifically by Constitution and bylaws, the American Legion is prohibited from endorsing any political candidate or any appointee. That being said, we're looking for a trailblazer. We're looking for a lightning rod to come in there and have the type of leadership that subordinates are going to respect and feel comfortable that they can honor with the truth. That's what we need. We need someone, anybody who steps into that position, whether it was Eric Shinseki or anybody else, is not going to be able to do it on their own. They need their partners. They need the VSO community, the veteran community, they need the administration, and they need Congress. This is a joint effort. That department is entirely too large for any one person to be able to run on their own. They need to accept the help that's being offered to them by the people who have been doing this since 1919.
Let's take the other major story of the weekend, and that was the return of an American prisoner, the lone American prisoner in Afghanistan, in exchange for 5 top Taliban officials incarcerated at Guantanamo Bay. Does the Legion stand clear of those military and policy decisions? Or, Lewis, do you have a comment on what transpired this weekend in terms of that exchange?
Well, I can tell you that the American Legion called for the repatriation by whatever reasonable means necessary for the return of our POW. Now that he has been returned, we think it's completely up to the military authorities. He is still a member of the United States Army to investigate any circumstances surrounding his disappearance and act in accordance with their findings.
So, to boil this down, Louis Celli, you're saying the return was important by, I want to make sure I get the terminology correct. Did you use reasonable means? Because that brings up the whole question. When you have 5 top Taliban officials exchanged for the one American prisoner. I mean, a lot of people are happy to have the American back, but there was grave concern that the U.S. conceded too much in this exchange.
Well, J.D., that's not only an administrative policy decision that I'm sure that the White House made in conjunction with leaders at the Department of Defense, but I can tell you that if it was my son or my daughter or my brother that was being held captive, and you were to ask me how many Taliban leaders should we be able to swap to get that person home safely, I'd say as many as you can round up. But those aren't our decisions to make. We just have to believe that the intelligence that was gathered at the time made safe decisions for the United States of America, and that the DoD leaders and the administration took that into consideration when they made these agreements, and that there was no other way to return that soldier.
It has become the bone of some contention, and there's only about a minute left, Louis, but the situation that by law, Congress was to be informed 30 days before this swap, yet no such notification came. We know you work closely with people on the Hill. Is there a legitimate grievance there with the lack of legislative consultation or even advising the legislative branch?
Well, J.D., and again, as you know, this just happened this weekend. We were all caught off guard by it. Nobody was given advance notice. We haven't really had a chance to delve into the legalities of how the administration may or may not have acted and what conversations they had with Congress, because those are classified conversations and we wouldn't have known anyway. We're going to have to let Congress and the administration work that out.
Fair enough. Louis Celli, the Legislative Director for the American Legion, we appreciate your insights on these 2 vital stories. Thank you so much.
Congressman, thank you for having me today.